I'm really, really happy that you've chosen to spend your holiday Monday evening with us, that you're here to learn about who everyone else is in the room, not necessarily just what they do. So it is my absolute pleasure to open MoMondays.
I went through over 10 professionals to see what was going on. It had been going on for 7 years, had to push to get an MRI, had to push to get a biopsy. So standing in my kitchen, get a phone call. Head of MSK tumors at Mount Sinai Hospital. Liz, I've got your pathology report for your foot. I'm like, oh, great, Jay, what is it? And he goes, you have got cancer. Who gets cancer in their foot? Like, honestly, who gets cancer in their foot? So in that moment, I was not really inspired, I can tell you. I was in between disbelief and absolute abject terror as my stomach was just dropped and my brain went, what does this mean for my life? What does this mean to my husband and my family? What does this mean to my patients and my practice?
I went hunting. And I love awards, right? I'm gonna brag, I told you. So on my very first hunt, on the very first day, I shot a 9-point buck. And my husband was totally excited, and I was like, wow, I was so proud. And by the way, that was the only meat that we normally would eat. And what happened on the last day of the hunt? I shot a 14-point buck. And my husband, former husband, who had been hunting for 50 years and over, never shot a 14-point buck. Oh my gosh, he came jumping up and down, and whatever. And I think actually that he was jealous of me.
And so he went to the local Buddhist monastery and asked the head monk there, you know, I really want to learn the ways of being more present and being more connected and engaged. I want to learn how to be a wise monk. Will you teach me? And the monk said, absolutely. And in exchange, you can work in my garden for me. So the man agreed. And he began to work in the garden, pulling weeds and pruning the plants, and he put a lot of focus and energy into it. He wanted to do a good job. He was really focused. And every day, as he was focused on his work, the head monk would very quietly come out and, unbeknownst to this man, sneak up behind him and kick him in the rear. By the time the man jumped up to turn around to say what was going on, the monk had walked away. So this went on for quite some time. And finally, you know, the man was getting a little agitated because, geez, I came here for lessons, not to be physically abused. And all I'm doing is weeding this garden and doing all this gardening, and I'm not getting my lessons. So he decided he was going to try and confront the monk.
I thought A Labyrinth was a David Bowie album from the 80s. I'm serious. Like, I know his music, but... So then she hands me this little piece of paper that was like the size of the palm of my hand. And on it was the Chartres Labyrinth. Has anybody ever seen one of these? Been in one of these? This is a very intricate, detailed 7 or 11 circuit labyrinth that has pathways that interconnect. And it's a spiritual journey so that when you go into the labyrinth, you're actually letting go of things from the past. When you're in the center of the labyrinth, you're standing in the present and keeping yourself open to, you know, possibilities. And as you leave the labyrinth, you're walking out into your future.
And the best thing is I got to take my mother on a few flights. And she was in awe of the whole experience. I remember one time I was working the flight and I went down the aisle and I looked over and there was my mother with the headset facing the other way. She couldn't hear anything. And I said, Mom, you got to turn the headset around. She was just in so much awe. So that went on. And, you know, there was a couple things that happened. I have to flip my page. Sorry about this. So life changed for all of us. My mom was diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer, and I didn't understand how this could happen, why it happened to her, how could we get rid of it, and right away I went into a knee-jerk response. I needed to research it. I needed to find out why. And the thing is, my mom faced it as courageously as she could, And when we tried to check into alternative therapies, the powers that be said no. It wasn't for me to say why not, because I knew of no other options.
And I shook hands with the Dean of Osgoode Hall Law School. And then I shook hands with the Chief Justice of the Court of Appeal. And then I stuck my hand out to the CEO of the Law Society. And he didn't take it. He just stood there in front of thousands of people. And then he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me and gave me a hug. And he whispered, "I knew you could do it." You see, he was the new CEO of the Law Society. Before that, he'd been the president of Niagara College. And 13 years before that, he had been the vice president of administration at Georgian College. The very man who pronounced me a lawyer was John Saso, the person who taught me to believe I am not limited by other people's expectations. Thank you.
I want you to go out, find some fireworks, have a glass of wine, finish celebrating the holiday weekend, and remember, make every day a MoMonday. Thank you.